Hey, welcome back to the wrestling show where keeping it real goes right. Welcome back to Real Take Wrestle Talk live here on YouTube. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, wrestling connoisseur, and the lover of the backwards hat to cover up something we don't know.
Oh, second
oh,
hit.
oh, you kind of look like Double D with the red shirt and the hat. There we go. Tell him what's up, Trevor.
What's going on, wrestling fans?
Yes, what is going on indeed? A lot is going on, and we're going to get to all of it this week. From Tessa Blanchard potentially joining AEW to potentially not joining AEW, as some recent news has put it. AEW having trouble with their fans and for copyright strikes. We have Jericho shooting on Impact, and much more, as also the Blood and Guts preview for tomorrow night. And yeah, dark side of the ring. I'm sorry, I blacked out there for a second. Dark side of the ring. Fan questions. Daniel Bryan's future up in the air. We don't know what's going on, but we're gonna tell you about it anyway. And we're all excited, and not as excited as you should be to hit that like button, subscribe, so you get notified whenever a new video is released. And as always, guys, ask any questions in the chat. Ask any questions everywhere. We are here to serve the fans, the beautiful fans, as Randy Orton would say. All right. Trevor, let's kick things off by talking about Tessa Blanchard. So, yes, everyone's favorite Impact World Champion of all time. But Tessa Blanchard was recently linked to potentially being in AEW. As we would find out, a lot of things changed over the time, but let's actually get into it real quick. So, as I stated, former imp. Oh, you're messed up. Yeah, you're a little messed up. Let's fix it. It's okay. See? Technical difficulty. See, it's the page I forgot to check. But hey, okay, there we go. There we go. Fixed. See? Just like that. All right. So, as I was saying, former Impact World Champion Tessa Blanchard has recently been linked to potentially joining AEW. There were rumors that she was talking to AEW, but all those rumors were kind of cleared up by Dave Meltzer during today's edition of the Wrestling Observer Radio. Meltzer commented on the report that originated from SE Scopes that AEW was in talks with former Impact World Champion Tessa Blanchard. And according to Meltzer, AEW was not actually in talks with Blanchard. He stated that, quote, "I do have to mention before we go that AEW is not negotiating with Tessa Blanchard. I know that people keep asking me about this, and in fact, there is nothing to do. In fact, there's nothing to it." So that's the deal. So Meltzer very clearly saying that AEW and Tessa Blanchard are not talking to each other. There's no type of deal. There's no type of negotiations going on. And one has to think, does this have anything to do with Blanchard's past? Because otherwise, Blanchard in the ring is a star. We know the ties with her dad, Tully, who is in AEW. But, Tessa Blanchard is no stranger to criticism. In January 2020, multiple female wrestlers came forward with claims of bullying and racist remarks. And, one of the people who actually claimed that this was going on was Black Rose, who later stated that these events took place. So there's a lot of history there as well. There's a lot of potential problems. But what do you think about this, Trevor? Do you think that Tessa Blanchard's past might have hurt her in a potential signing or potential negotiation with AEW?
Like you said, she's magic in the ring. I absolutely love watching her in the ring. And she does have shades of her dad, definitely. But I always say when you go to other sports, like you say you have a great player on court, on field, whatever sport you have, 9 times out of 10, the reason you don't pick this person up is because they're chaos in the locker room. And I honestly believe that's part of what's wrong with Tessa Blanchard. WWE won't touch her, which is interesting because WWE touches everybody. But WWE won't touch her. Impact wanted nothing to do with her, and Tessa's part of the reason people watch Impact. So to kill your ratings the way they did just because they just didn't want to touch her means something. And I honestly believe her attitude in the locker room and behind the scenes has a big part to play in it. I mean, because it can't be her skills. I mean, if you put her on any woman's roster, no matter what roster it is, it's gonna make it better. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
There we go. Sorry about that. I know we talked about recently how AEW has, had a bit of an image problem lately. We talked about the Alberto El Patron controversy. We talked about the controversy overall with, how they've treated female wrestlers with the Evil East thing and everything like that. And, I think this might be them taking a step to say, okay, there is this amazing talent out there who would immediately, yes, make our women's division better. Like let's get this out of the way. Tessa Blanchard would immediately make the AEW women's division so much better. She would make the AEW roster a lot better by just given her wrestling skills and her skills on the mic and everything. It would mean a lot to get her. But the history changes all of that. We talked about this, I think, on a different scale, but we talked about similar things like with controversy that have hit other wrestlers. Hulk Hogan was one name we talked about before. That's very similar to this. We talked, in a different light, in much more extreme circumstances. We talked about Benoit, and like one of the reasons he's not in like the Hall of Fame or recognized is because of those out of the ring like concerns and what they bring up in the perception and it brings up about wrestling. So I think that that's possibly like a big reason as to why these things are being brought up and as to why Blanchard might not be signing with AEW. And that's the thing, man. When you have these allegations, these are not like, just like it's one thing if like, you're politicking behind the scenes or you're like trying to lobby for a spot. That's totally different. That happens in a lot of businesses. But when you're actively doing what is being called bullying and allegedly calling people racist remarks, and these are some bad racial slurs that she's accused of saying, if you guys go out and like really dig into it. But so that's not gonna lead to a good working environment with the other talent. That's not gonna lead to a good working environment for everybody, and it's problematic, and that's why I think it's gonna be hard for them to bring her in. That being said, for me personally, again, we don't know exactly what happened. The allegations are what they are, but I'm not like opposed to like people being like, not necessarily forgiven, but it legitimately like, finding like legitimately like acknowledging what they did was wrong and changing habits. I think that there can be like a way for that to happen. Again, if all of this is true, she has since denied it, but when you have a lot of people coming forward with the same kind of story like that, it becomes hard to ignore. So, maybe down the line she can, but a lot of this stuff is very fresh. We know that with Hulk Hogan, he was basically banished from WWE for like 2-3 years before he was able to make his return as Saudi Hogan, as we all remember.
Saudi.
God bless Saudi Hogan, the only Hogan we love. But so I think it might take a little more time. She's been out of the ring, I believe, for a year since COVID started. So it's gonna. I think it's just gonna take a little more time. But let's fantasy book, I guess, a little bit. Let's say she gets these things taken care of. These things, go away one way or another, right? Where do you think she would? Where do you think she could go? Where could Tessa Blanchard go to make the biggest impact? Pardon the pun.
Well, let's see. I honestly think a AEW run would be great for her. I mean, it'd be interesting because her dad's there. Like he could add her to the Pinnacle. You know what I mean? That would be something interesting, very interesting, if you go along those lines. She could also go New Japan. Like, I mean, who wouldn't want to wrestle her in New Japan? Like, there's a couple places I can see her going. I just hope she doesn't go to the WWE. Maybe NXT, but other than that, no.
You think she could go to NXT?
I think she would do well in NXT. Can you imagine her and Raquel Gonzalez going at it? Oh, that'd be a great thing.
That would be an insane contest. That would they would like that would be a stiff wrestling match because we know Tessa Blanchard she's kind of very old school, which is a part of the reason in the ring I'm a huge fan of her product in the ring. She's so good at like making it look like it hurts because a lot of the times it does hurt. and she gets you to buy in, which is one of the reasons she became like basically the first female performer to win a world championship, like a men's division world championship. And I think that was well deserved. A lot of people gave her slack for it. And look, we can there's a lot of like slack to be able to give her, right? With the allegations and everything. But if we're talking about like based on her talent, did she deserve to be in that spot? Hell yeah. Dude, it's not like she's competing for she's competing for the Impact World Championship, first of all. Let's temper like people who were offended by that. Like, when else did anybody care about the Impact World Championship? Firstly, like it's not this prestigious title that people are arguing that it was at the time, right? It was a garbage title. Like God bless Sami Callihan, but like Sami Callihan was a world champion. I could totally see Tessa Blanchard in real life could beat the shit out of Sami Callihan. That's like no question in my mind. Like, she's tough and she's great in the ring and she's young. That's the one thing people forget. She's young. She's my age, dude.
27 or
26 to 25, 26. She's very young. Like, so she's got a lot of a future ahead of us. She's got a lot of wrestling left. I just hope that she can get past some of these all out of the ring concerns and maybe get to a place in her life where like these problems don't come up and everyone's at peace, and hopefully she can put on a performance in the ring because she's so good. She's like, I cannot emphasize it. Tessa Blanchard is she might be actually the best in-ring performer, like female in-ring performer there is out anywhere.
She's good. She's damn good. Like, I mean, you still have your we rant and rave about her almost every week. Sasha Banks. You also have the EST of WWE, and of course Becky Lynch. But then you can't forget all the other names that we talk about, Dr. Britt Baker, things like that. But yeah, I think Tessa might be one of the better female talents and in ring performers. And I just thought of another good match for her, Ty Conti.
Ooh, Ty Conti. Ty Conti's doing very well. I'm glad to see her being used. How did WWE mess up on her? Like how did they miss out on Ty Conti?
It's WWE.
But it's NXT. NXT is supposed to be the ones that find these talents.
True. Like NXT, it makes more sense that they would use her, but they did not use her at all. And I was so amazed at that though. But to be fair, NXT is kind of stacked when it comes to talent though. So maybe she didn't fall into the shuffle, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it's a shame. Definitely a shame.
Now that's a damn shame. Yeah, no, to quote Thugnificent from the Boondocks, that's a damn shame. You know what's not you know what else is a damn shame, Trevor? The recent copyright strikes that AEW has been dishing out against YouTubers and content creators all over the platform. It is not great. For those of you who are not aware, let me fill you in. So earlier last week, AEW went out there. They're sorry about that. I messed up. Earlier last week, AEW's social media team went out there and they issued copyright strikes to several YouTubers, some prominent YouTubers, a lot of small channels as well, and also their own AEW games and AEW music channels, like their own channels. They issued copyright strikes, and basically what a copyright strike is, they shut down the video, like they claim the video and then they shut it down, and then the YouTuber, the content creator, gets a strike on their channel, and if you get 3 strikes, you're kicked off the platform. So it's a big deal for a lot of these content creators, and there was a lot of controversy about this because there's one big name that got stricken down, and it was Matthew from Botchamania. And one thing we know is Botchamania at this point is kind of like a staple in professional wrestling at this point. Like Matthew he's on Botchamania, I think like 433 or something. He's a staple in wrestling. So it's weird to see when you see him getting copyright stricken at this point when he has a relationship with WWE and understanding with AEW and things like that. It's very troublesome. So I think that what happened was they went out there and they just started striking all these channels, and it might have been automated. They looks like it was automated because they ended up copyright striking their own games and their own music videos. Like it was crazy. It was insane.
It's
So
Sammy Guevara too, right?
what?
Sammy Guevara as well, right?
Yeah, Sammy Guevara got copyright stricken as well. It was not great. It was not great, and it's not a good look for them. A lot of fans were complaining about this. A lot of YouTubers were complaining about this, saying that it's not good for the product. It's not good for wrestling because a lot of these people, they want to cover AEW, but the thing is you can't like cut their legs out from under them. Otherwise, the product is gonna get, people aren't gonna be talking about it. That's part of the reason we do this. Like we want to talk about wrestling. We want other people to potentially like find AEW as a good product and maybe watch it as well, or WWE, whatever, right? And the thing is, so the controversy is this: like AEW at this point, they never explicitly made it clear, right? What was okay and what wasn't. It was kind of like this limbo, the state of limbo. Like they were like, oh well, you know what? We're gonna let our fans do whatever. They can make gifts, they can make video, whatever, right? And like that was the mentality for a long time. Now it's kind of changed with all of this stuff, and fans are upset. They don't know, can we use videos? Can we use like, photos even? Like that's one of the reasons I was kind of like going back through my channel and looking at videos as well, to make sure we were all good there. But Trevor, what is this? What do you make of this? Is AEW wrong for this? Like what's the perception for this, like as far as they go?
This doesn't make sense to me. I mean, and I can't, in good conscience, think it actually makes sense to them either. Because, like you said, to me, it's got to be one of those automated things. Because, like you said, they're doing their game channel music. They also did one of their own talents. Like that doesn't make any sense at all. Like like you said, this is a platform where people come to talk about wrestling. And I mean, a lot of people nowadays are kind of like, like me and you, when we first started doing this, we talked about wrestling. It was like, you watch wrestling, right? Look, kind of. Like a lot of people don't really admit to liking wrestling because the product in the mainstream, which mainstream being WWE, is kind of garbage. So a lot of people are kind of embarrassed to even say, "Yeah, I'm a wrestling fan," and it sucks. But when you have federation corporations like AEW, it felt good to say, "Hey, I'm a wrestling fan." Even with NXT, "Hey, I'm a wrestling fan." In New Japan and all the other promotions that do it so much, you're like, I'm a wrestling fan. But when one like new kid on the block being AEW, and it's still a new kid, even though it's like 2 years old, comes out and then starts copywriting YouTubers who are pretty much praising it or not praising it, but giving it kudos where they can, and pretty much promoting their product, it doesn't really make a lot of sense why you would copy strike. So I mean, that's kind of taken away from your promotion.
I agree. And for those of you who are wondering, like, what is copyright strikeable, or what is good and what isn't allowed, I think the basic rule of thumb at this point is videos and pictures, like screen grabs from the TNT product or the TNT broadcast, are probably a no-no. What seems to be permissible at this point are photos that AEW puts out, like by themselves on their website of events. So that might be like a bit of a thing that you can work with. And they put out some very good quality photos. That's what I've been using mostly. That's what we've been using here. Like we try not to do the screen grab thing because we got kind of bit in the butt by New Japan by it. Thank you, TV Asahi, for that. Yeah, my God. And like that's the other thing. We talked about this basically like 3 weeks ago too. We were like, New Japan is striking. They have a reputation. New Japan has a huge reputation of striking down any talk of their channel or of their product on any channel. Like they even gave out copyright strikes to like Cultaholic and What Culture. Like these huge like big channels, my guy. Like they gave out these copyright strikes to all these big channels, and so it's like it's got to a point where no one wants to even talk about New Japan. Like legitimately, people who cover wrestling, they don't talk that much about New Japan because they're going to get copyright stricken. And what's the point of doing this, right? When you built up a lot of followers, you built up all these subscribers who want to listen to you, if your entire platform is taken away from you and you can't talk about the product, it's going to make you less interested in the product, and it's going to make the people who listen to those people less interested in the product, because all they're going to see is like, oh, wow, this company doesn't even want people talking about it. So it's dumb, in my opinion. It's very dumb. It's misguided. And one thing is, like, we saw that Aubrey Edwards, who's like, she's part of the executive team of AEW that's kind of like dealing with this right now. She tweeted at Matthew saying that they're dealing with the issue, they're trying to get it fixed. So they've been apparently pretty respondent to people and YouTubers who've been complaining. There's still some smaller channels who are dealing with strikes, who are dealing with not knowing what's going on. They're facing termination, which, for smaller channels, that's a big deal, especially when you built up a base. And it's come to the point where I think AEW, they at least need to put out a statement and acknowledge this and lay out what is good and what is not. Like, explicitly say it. Like, I think that's a very easy thing to do. If you don't want people using videos, that's fine. But let them know, don't use videos. If you don't just say like, we're gonna like pick and choose, or don't just say like, oh, you can't use, or we're not gonna say anything. You'll deal with the consequences if they happen. Like, that's not a good place to put content creators. Not a good place to put fans who want to talk about the product. So that's my 2 cents on that. I think that AEW should answer for it. I think that the fact that Botchamania, and we love Botchamania, the Botchamania thing got dealt with so quickly, and we still have a bunch of YouTubers dealing with these issues. I think it's not a good look on their part. And I'm very optimistic in their approach and the way they've handled their fans so far. I think they'll be able to deal with it in a proper way. I hope they will, but that's to be seen.
Yeah, hope so. I mean, because like you said, it's a big blemish on their account at this point. And I mean, AEW is doing pretty well so far, but now with that, it's just like, what can I do? What can I say?
Yeah. You know what you guys can do, and you know what you can say? You can ask your questions in the chat below, and you can hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
That almost didn't work. You got
almost it. Almost didn't work. Man, it's been a long day. It's been a long day of a lot of stuff, but we're getting through it. Trevor, can you do me a favor? Can you maybe speak up a little bit? I'm getting a faint noise from you. Like, we can hear you, but it's a little faint. Anyway, moving on. We'll deal with that as it goes. Let's talk about this. This is an interesting story from this week. It involves Chris Jericho and Impact Wrestling, two entities, two products that we never thought would really cross paths. But given AEW's relationship with Impact, maybe that was down the pipe. Maybe that was in the works. According to Jericho, it's never going to happen. So Chris Jericho said in a recent interview about Impact and AEW's relationship and about him potentially one day showing up on Impact, quote, Chris Jericho will never go to Nashville and work in an empty studio in front of somebody. There's no reason for me to do that. If those guys came over to invade, who are they going to bring? And this gets to the point. Like, the question was about, a potential Impact invasion of AEW and what that would look like. And Jericho essentially shot it down and said that wouldn't work because AEW, like, it wouldn't really benefit AEW to do so. It would only benefit Impact. And, he makes I think, a good point about this, like, about AEW and Impact's relationship in a whole, and like who it benefits and who it doesn't. So, Trevor, what do you make of his comments about him saying he won't go to Impact, and about him saying that, the invasion wouldn't really help AEW, and at this point, Impact's just kind of getting clout from AEW?
Honestly, I do agree. You hear me now? You hear me?
Yeah.
I do agree that it's more beneficial to Impact than it is AEW. I mean, let's just be honest. Like, who really does Impact have? Like, I mean, you can only name like maybe 5 people worth seeing in a AEW ring. But like, I mean, it's the idea of it is fun. It's whimsical. It's entertaining. I mean, We had a great title match with Kenny Omega, and Rich Swann. It was a great match, but like I mean, and we've said before, like Rich kind of gassed out, and Kenny had to carry the rest of the match, but it was a great match nonetheless. I mean, Tessa Blanchard gone, like a lot of good talent that was gone. Like they don't have anyone that don't have too many people that anyone would really want to see in an AEW ring.
Yeah, they don't have like that big draw that like,
Yeah,
Chris Jericho would be or Kenny Omega would be or in NXT or WWE like Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan. Like, they don't have the guy or the girl that's gonna bring product eyes to the product necessarily.
exactly, and that's the issue. And I mean, as much as like I said, as much as we said last week, it's good for wrestling. It is. The inter promotional matches like this whole so-called invasion is great, but I mean, the only people that benefit from it are Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that Impact probably needs AEW more than AEW needs Impact.
Right.
Um, I think in part this relationship between Impact and AEW kind of came about because of Kenny Omega's ties with Don Callis, and also I think just because of the idea of Kenny Omega potentially being the belt collector, that whole gimmick. I think
Right.
that kind of was the emphasis point for this relationship in the first place, and I think it's kind of played its course until Omega eventually loses the belt, of course. But I don't think we're going to see an invasion. I think Jericho's pretty much on the point right there. He's like on the ball. Impact is only getting helped, and I think we're going to cover how much they were actually helped because their pay-per-view numbers were really good for the Kenny Omega match at Rebellion. So
Right.
again, they were helped out more, and that's good. That's fine. That's fine. I think for AEW it was let's make Kenny Omega a bigger star, saying that he went to this company and he took over basically on day one and he won the belt. It'll add to his kind of gimmick. It'll add to his legend, his aura, his character. So that's what I think it was about for AEW. And, maybe there was also some goodwill of helping wrestling overall because I think if Impact gets more viewers, then AEW is going to do better. Everyone's going to do better. That's it's a very simple thing. The whole WWE mentality of crushing all competition, like it's not a healthy one because at the end of the day, you want the entire business to succeed. You want it to thrive. So there's going to be a well of talent, a well of wrestlers, a well of the industry to draw
Right.
from. Like that's what we're talking about when we're saying that this is good for wrestling. So again, like he's right. I don't necessarily want to see an Impact invasion because they just did that with like GFW like 3 years ago or whatever. And no, I only know of it because like I watched a clip or two of GFW. Yeah, God help my soul. But I think that the invasion's not going to happen. If there was to be an invasion, I think the obvious choice for that would be New Japan. I think a
Yeah.
New Japan invasion of AEW would help them. It would help New Japan. That would be a mutually beneficial relationship, if anything. Jericho's been to New Japan. He works like he's worked with Naito. He's worked with Omega, obviously, a bunch of people from over there. So that could be potentially down the pike when conditions are better, when COVID is more taken care of in those countries. So look for that. But Impact, no. Impact, that's not going to happen. Like I think, like I said, the Impact deal with AEW, I think, has kind of played its course, and Impact is going to be on their own. Might they do a bit of a talent exchange, like with the lesser known talents? Maybe that could be in down the pike. But again, I don't see an Impact invasion even benefiting Impact at that point because it's just going to be like they're going to get squashed because
Yeah.
they're going to get squashed.
Matt
Um,
Cardona and who else?
It's like well, he's if anyone's used to getting squashed, it's definitely Matt Cardona.
too,
Um,
too soon.
not soon enough. What do you mean? Not soon enough. Um, no, but see, here's the thing. Like, they really like Rich Swann was the world. love Rich Swann. Baltimore native, love him. Neighbor growing up. But Rich Swann was a world champion. You know, like the days of Christian Cage, Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe are over. Well, Samoa Joe might be going back. We don't know about that yet. But Impact likes to. Yeah, they like to tease a lot of stuff though. But you know, the days of these big world champions in Impact, it's kind of over.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can use the momentum they've built up. You know, they got Big Cass now, Cass XL, W Morrissey, whatever he's being called now. So you know, I think that might bring them a little bit of attention. So again, it's up to them. Hopefully they succeed. Praying for Impact. Hopefully they're able to get fans back in at some point. You know, they're maybe figure something out like that because that always helps the product. We saw WrestleMania did better. AEW Dynamite has been so much better when they have fans, like infinitely better. So hopefully they can get to a point where they have that, you know.
I mean, they've been on the chopping block for a while though, unfortunately, but they just barely been holding on. So
hey man, look, there are 3 positives. There are 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and Impact Wrestling never dying. Like, oh my, Impact. They literally have a pay-per-view called Hard to Kill.
Yeah. They do.
Like think about it.
They're literally the cockroach of wrestling. Like you can't kill them.
Yeah, much like X-Pac. Just they won't go away. But hey, kudos to them, man. Like, look, we've seen ECW lose their TV deal and die. We've seen WCW lose their TV deal and die. We've seen Impact lose TV deals 4 times in the past 6 years, and they are still alive. They are on Twitch. I don't know where this money is coming from. I don't know like who. Look, people, this just proves how much people care about wrestling. like for Impact Wrestling to never die at this point, it proves to you how much some people just love wrestling. Like, so God bless them. I really hope Impact the best.
God bless Impact.
God bless you, and God bless Impact as well. All right, Trevor, put your game face on. It's time. Blood and guts. Are you ready, my guy?
I am ready, and I am going to be, good sir.
Let's go. Wednesday night on a special edition of Dynamite. It's going to be blood and guts after my jerk-off friend, a.k.a. MJF, turned his back on the Inner Circle. It's been a blood feud between the Inner Circle and the members of the Pinnacle. From backstage brawls to Mike Tyson punching out members to a weird but impassioned promo about Jake Hager protecting Jericho from an assassination attempt in Abu Dhabi. It all comes to a head on Wednesday night Dynamite. Blood and guts, the Inner Circle versus the Pinnacle in a cage, and the only way to win is by making one of the opponents, submit. This is the match we've been waiting for, Trevor. We talked about this before. This was a big match between the Elite and the Inner Circle we were looking forward to last year. It didn't happen. We're getting it this year under original War Games rules. What do we expect from this? Because the way they played it up is going to be mayhem. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be insane. What do we expect?
Well, first off, let's talk about some of these promos. Some of them were amazing. Some of them, like you said, were kind of weird, but some of them were absolutely amazing. I love the whole my jerk off friend. I love that shit. That is complete Jericho. I don't think anyone else can even play it off the way Jericho does it. It's just been a war of words with these two, and honestly, I hate to see it end. It's good, you know what I mean? It keeps you into the whole feud, because without it, you're like, this makes no sense. Shit, they even had Warlow talking. Like, Warlow doesn't talk; he just grunts most times, and we all know what Jack Hager sounds like on a mic. He sounds like Mike Tyson with a better less.
The all-American American.
Like, it's terrible, but like, I mean, everyone has been talking.
Yeah, it was a tragedy.
Everyone's been talking. Everyone's been like, Guevara, please give him the mic more often. Like, it's been interesting. But this match, I hope, lives up to the war of words that we've had. It should be bloody. It should be out of your mind, like high risk, because you have the Latin god, the Spanish god, who jumps off every fucking thing. It's I mean, this should be a good one. You have the chairman. I can't wait to see what Sean Spears does.
Oh yeah.
It is gonna be a damn good match. I agree. I think. Damn
It
good
is.
match.
It is. And I just want to talk about the promos leading up to this because those have been spectacular. Like
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's great.
what I've enjoyed about AEW as of recently was the sit down promos they've been doing. Like they had an amazing sit down promo with MJF and the Pinnacle, where it was like old school style wrestling, which I enjoy. I enjoy those sit down promos
Right.
because it's a lot more real. It looks a lot better than like everyone unnaturally coming down to a ring and cutting a promo. Like no. In sports, what do? They do interviews like that. Like it gives it more of a sports type feel. It gives it more of a serious feel. And I think MJF comes across like a superstar, the dick heel he is. He comes across as the pompous, like leader of that team, and it just works. It clicks on all cylinders. Jericho, like you said, he's been money. Like Chris Jericho, like when the book is written about AEW and their ascent into mainstream professional wrestling, Jericho's gonna have like at least like half that book. Like he's gonna be mentioned in half that book. Like it's gonna be he's helped put this company on the map more than anything, and he's stable and he's like been the best promos. He's been the best segments, and I think everyone wins by this. And, we'll get to our predictions in a second, but I just wanted to highlight, man, these sit-down promos have been amazing. Like, you can literally
The parlay
see it.
was amazing.
Oh, the parlay was great. The parlay was great.
Amazing.
Yeah, and like, I love how they were playing off each other. I think it was very smart to give each member, I think, of the teams an opportunity to speak. Because when was the last time we heard Dax Hardwood speak? When was the last time we heard Sean Spears speak? But they all got a chance to speak, and they all it was serious. It wasn't like they weren't playing games. They weren't like, I'm going to roast you. It was serious. Like, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. At Blood and Guts, it's going to be us versus you, and we are going to murder you, essentially, is what they were saying.
That's pretty much what they said.
Yeah, and I cannot wait to see it. But given that, the promos have been great. We've said that, but the match. What do we expect from the actual match itself, and who do you think should win and who's going to win?
So in my opinion, who should win is kind of up in the air, and I'll explain to you why. So you have a situation. You have two teams, right? You have two teams right now. One has been in AEW the whole time. AEW's been around. They've just turned into this face team, which is interesting because they're actually kind of working it better than I thought they would. Then you have this new team who pretty much all the members have been winners. One has had the tag team championships. Sean Spears has never really been used. Like you've seen him on like dark matches and things like that, but he's never really done it. And so you have a chance to take some of these wrestlers that haven't really done much and lift them up. But you also have another chance to make this once heel team and make them one of the biggest faces as far as the team goes in AEW. So you have you have to weigh out your pros and cons. Which one would be better? Do you think making Pinnacle this super like heel team would be better? Or do you think uplifting Inner Circle and making them already what you thought they were, a team of talented professional wrestlers, and making them this supreme face? So to me, it really all depends on how the fans play it out. You know what I mean? The attention the fans give, the noise, the ovation, like what team is doing better within the match. I think it's one of those that's going to be called like in the middle of a match, like, hey, so and so, let them win. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I honestly think it can go either way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I wholeheartedly believe that the team that should win is the Pinnacle, because when you look when you look at it, who needs it the most? Who are we trying to build up the most? The inner circle, they are mainstays in AEW. That's guaranteed. The Pinnacle, we've seen them wrestle a handful of times separately. We've never seen them as a unit go out there and have a war like this. So for me, I think the Pinnacle needs it more. They need to establish them as a real threat, because let's be honest about this. MJF, man, he has not been, he hasn't been great in a lot of these matches, right? Or sorry, he's not been great. He's been losing like frequently on pay-per-views. He's been losing a lot of big matches. I think he had one good win against Chris Jericho, but losing against Jon Moxley, he hasn't been featured a lot on AEW television at all. I think somebody pointed out to me he had like 2 matches all year in AEW. So like on TV. So that's very worrisome. Like that is worrisome.
Most of them were single matches. They were tag matches.
Yep, most of them were tag matches. So when you take all of that into account, I think it's they should win. And look, if we're talking about, just traditional war games, go back and look at some of the 90s war games that happened. A lot of the times the heels went in and they won those matches because of the violent nature of it. I mean, the Hulkamania era in WCW aside, forget, I'm talking about from take Hulk Hogan when he came in, and then 1995 completely out of it. Right. The heels a lot of time won those matches. There was this one finish, and I think if there's any finish of a previous war games to draw a potential conclusion or a potential finish from, I think it's the one. I think it was 1997 at Fall Brawl. It was the Four Horsemen, who were the faces at the time, going up against the NWO. And this was a great, that's honestly personally my favorite War Games match. And it's because of the ending. The end, as we know, in War Games, the only way to win is to submit or have an opponent quit. And what they did was so smart. It was, they essentially, the NWO handcuffed everybody else to the cage. Everyone was handcuffed. It was Benoit, Mongo, I believe it was Arn Anderson, might have been someone else, but while Ric Flair was basically just getting the shit beaten out of him, bloodied, they were ramming the cage door into Flair, and then somebody else quit. And somebody else quit. I think it was Benoit, might have quit on behalf of Flair and on behalf of the team. If there's any finish that I could see maybe potentially drawing from in the past, I think it's that one. Imagine that. That is honestly my fantasy booking for this. Sammy Guevara and everyone's tied up, or they're being forced to watch Chris Jericho being pummeled, just decimated, in a very violent way, where they're genuinely concerned, and they're forced to quit. And you know what that does? That's more powerful than if they just made somebody submit, with a regular submission hold. Because what that does is it shows that the Pinnacle are violent, people who can actually overpower you and who are willing to go to any lengths to win. And, does it protect the inner circle? Yeah, it also does that. And, maybe you could elongate the feud a little bit too. And that's just me, but I would love to see something along the lines of that finish, because that was such a great finish. People don't realize how much that meant at the time. And I think that something like that, something along those lines would be very beneficial for the Pinnacle. It would make them such a threat, because people would be like, oh my God, they are monsters, and they're smart too, because it's not like that. That's not cheating. That's literally you overpowering your opponents and making him submit and saying that you're willing to literally bash his brains in order to win. In storyline wise, I think that would be a very, very good move, and I hope they go somewhere in that direction. It doesn't have to be exactly like it, right? But I think it's going to be great, though.
But like I said, it also protects the inner circle. And it protects the inner circle because, it's pretty much saying, look, you guys are badasses, but we're proving that we're badasses. The only way we could physically stop you was to chain you up and let you watch this merciless ass whooping that we're putting on your leader and make you have to quit. That, it makes them vicious, but it also makes the inner circle look like okay, so we're strong, but we got to do what's right for for our leader. So yeah, I think that's a great. That would be a great ending. I always like that ending to that match. I thought that was one of the better War Game matches.
Yeah. Look, like I said, that like Fall Brawl '97. Honest to me, it was my favorite War Games, and might not be the best, but it was my favorite War Games just because of the drama and everything that went into it. That was kind of like the culmination of the WCW versus NWO storyline at the time. Like, I mean, they had like 50 culminations.
Which one
but
was the one with Kevin with the Taskmaster? And
that was 90. Oh, that was 95. That was 95. The Fall Brawl 95. This was my second favorite one, and it has nothing to do with the in-ring product. It was crap. But
it was crap. It was just interesting.
The Dungeon of Doom in 1995 was one of the best things in retrospect ever. At the time, I would be pissed if I had paid for that pay-per-view. But like just watching it, and like, it was so bad. Like, it's actually bad wrestling when you were watching that. It was really bad wrestling. But
I mean, Kevin Sullivan was never that great of a wrestler. It was just you like to watch him in the ring because like you never knew what the fuck he was going to do. His matches with Chris Benoit was some of the best matches I've seen.
Bash at the Beach 96, I think it was, or 97. Yep. Like, that was if you have not seen that, go on the Peacock Network right now and go watch it. That is an amazing match. But yeah, no, that wasn't on Kevin Sullivan. A lot of that was due to Hulk Hogan because
it was.
Man,
it was.
like when you watch back some of Hogan's matches, look, the drama and storyline is amazing. Hulk Hogan is a really bad worker. It's like it's real. It's man, I can't.
Like a lot, we talked about this before, but a lot of his matches made other wrestlers look bad. Like he made Ray Traylor look terrible, and I thought Ray Traylor was a great worker. I thought Big Boss Man was a great worker, but him wrestling Big Boss Man made him look awful.
Yeah,
him and Earthquake.
Oh man, and how do you make Earthquake was a really good worker. Like, very underrated. Look, if there was anyone in that Hulkamania timeline that probably should have been a heel world champion to go up against Hogan, or a transitional champion, should have been Earthquake. Earthquake was very, very underrated during his time. Like, he was great in the ring. His promos were amazing. Just like, I'm gonna get on the Richter scale, and I'm gonna like it was great. It was like, he was a great heel. He had a good look for a heel. I think it worked for him. But for me, going back to the Hogan thing, because this is like a big thing for me. Like, Hogan was at his best when, again, he's a good storyline worker, right? When there's a storyline that's already established and there's big names, that big money match, he's great. But you can't expect Hogan to go out there and work like, a good technical match. You can't expect him to go out there and, like, all the time consistently work great matches, because he's just not that great of a wrestler. And at times he looks like he's phones it in a lot. He phones it in a lot, and it's especially in those WCW days. Like, if you don't believe me, for all the Hulkamarks that still exist that give me shit in the comments, go watch some WCW Hogan matches.
Yeah,
at Starrcade 94. You want the epitome of what I'm talking about? The WrestleMania of WCW 1994. Go watch the main event of that show, and I want you to tell me Hulk Hogan is a great worker. It was rough. Hogan and Brutus Beefcake in the main event.
First off, you have two people that can't play off anybody. Like, Bruce, like who's carrying that match? Like, the ring?
Bro, that was one match. That was one match even the ring couldn't carry. Like, that was so bad. It was.
Brutus was never, like, don't get me wrong, his goofy gimmick was cool, but he was never that great. No, the best gimmick he ever had was the Disciple. When he
I was gonna say the same thing. Yeah, the Disciple. You know why?
That's the best one.
Because he didn't do shit. He didn't do
Exactly.
shit. He just stood behind Hogan and was like, like all the time.
Most people didn't even know that was fucking him.
Dude, okay.
Most people didn't even know that was Beefcake.
The Disciple, Brutus the Barber Beefcake went through some of the most Brutus the Barber Beefcake went through some of the most insane like transitions in his career. A lot of people say Jericho is like the best gimmick changer of all time. Not even close to Beefer, man. He goes from Beefer, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, to the man with no name, to the Butcher in WCW, to the Booty Man, the Booty Man, to oh my God, what else? There was one I missed. The Zodiac. That's the
Zodiac.
one. Money gimmick right there. The Zodiac could only answer in Daniel Bryan chants. Yes, no, yes, no. And then the Disciple, which honestly, unrecognized, did not even know he was the Disciple until like I think this year I found out he was the Disciple. I literally did not know.
Yeah,
literally this year I was like, what?
I think WCW had already been sold.
Yeah,
when I found out.
The Disciple, and then you know, drugs happened, and but he seems to be doing good now. Hall of Famer, WWE Hall of Famer, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. State of your Hall of Fame, guys. It's like the state of X-Pac, a two-time Hall of Famer. Brutus Beefcake.
Two-time Hall of Famer. Like, you really gonna put that all on Beefcake?
Hey man, hey, you better be aware. Coco beware.
Hey. Okay,
yeah. Like, don't even. Dude, Jinder Mahal is going into the Hall of Fame. The modern day Maha bitch is going into the Hall of Fame.
He probably deserves it at some point.
Oh, God bless him. God bless him. And God bless you if you stuck with us. Anything else on Blood and Guts? We got really off topic there, but that was really fun.
We did, but it was fun. So, but yes, gonna be good. Check it out. Are you doing a live stream for that or no?
I might. I think I might actually do a live stream for that. I'll
be at work, but I'll.
Yeah, put on my live stream during the up at Dude.
What's this?
By the way, for anyone watching, if you're in the DC area, be sure to stop by on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays.
No, Mondays, Wednesdays here at the Dude Drop In.
Monday, Wednesday at the Dude Drop In DC, in Brookland, Northeast DC. Be sure to check that out. Hit up my boy Trevor. You know, he's good for conversations, and he will talk to you for the right price.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's got a price.
I'm not cheap.
for the $100 man.
If you're from Wrestle Talk and you come in and you wear a wrestling t-shirt, I might give you a free shot.
Potentially. He probably won't. He's a bit of a dick. No, he's actually a great guy. But anyway, for you guys, in the meantime, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Before we get to our next topic, I just put out a new video, by the way, today on the original Montreal Screwjob. Maybe we'll talk about that later, but be sure to check that out. It's part of a new series I'm doing called Sports Revisited, where we go back and chronicle previous sports events that happened. So be sure to check that out. It's posted earlier today on the channel. All right. So let's talk about this. So Impact Wrestling held their Rebellion pay-per-view last week. Of course, we talked about it. The AEW World Champion Kenny Omega showed up and he won the Impact World Championship from Rich Swann in the main event. And we were wondering, what were the numbers for this pay-per-view going to look like? Did it move business? Did Impact's business get better? Was there an impact, for lack of a better term, on TNA's revenue and from this pay-per-view? And we found out the answer to that. So we found out this, even though TV purchases were smaller than streaming ones, which are expected these days, you know, they got about 9,000 pay-per-view buys on traditional mediums, which for Impact is pretty good. One streaming provider on Rebellion says it was 7 times higher. The buy rate was 7 times higher than the Hard to Kill pay-per-view, which aired earlier this year, and 9 times higher than Bound for Glory 2020. And in fact, with Rebellion having done such strong numbers, it confirms that this is the biggest boom period for for Impact Wrestling's pay-per-view market since they got their Spike TV deal taken away from them. So, and this is their second biggest pay-per-view number since 2014. So, this is a big deal for Impact Wrestling. This is a huge deal for them. Trevor, what do you make of this? What do we think about Impact doing these great numbers? Can they keep it up potentially?
I think, honestly, I hate to say it, but I think the biggest draw was Kenny Omega and Maru. Like, I mean, that was pretty much what most people watched for. That's what I watched it for. I mean, don't get me wrong, they had great matches. Jordan Grace put on a hell of a match along with tag team partner. They had great matches that night. But can they build from this? And I think again it goes down to, do you have matches that everyone wants to see every pay-per-view? I mean, since Kenny Omega is a champion, you're probably going to see him pretty frequently. So that might help. And you still have the Good Brothers who are in Kenny's stable. So I mean, potentially you have money coming in. You just got to make the match watch. And honestly, do we really want to see Kenny Omega fight Sami Callihan? I
was going to talk about that. Yeah. Look, I like Sami Callihan. I know people are weird about him. I like him. I think his whole like deranged, like crazy guy gimmick is actually pretty good. I like the stuff they did with OVE.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I do think you're right. I think for Impact, this isn't like they should not be an expectation for this number to be the new normal. I think what this is, though, what this might show is, we know that Kenny Omega did draw for Impact, which is a big deal. And the thing is, are they able to take advantage of that pay-per-view? That going into Rebellion, that was the big thing. They had to make an impact. Again, I'm sorry for the impact puns. It's just a great word. But they had to do something on that pay-per-view to make a new audience, to draw people into their product. They're watching for Kenny Omega. He's in the last match. He's in the main event. So what's even more important than the main event, because Omega is going to have a great match. What's more important than the main event is what you do leading up to it. What stars do you build up? Who shows up? What storylines can you invest people in? And I think they did a decent job of that. I think the W. Morrissey, the Big Cass thing was really good. Bringing him in, I think that made a little bit of an improvement for them. There's other matches that were great on there, I think. So they did a decent job of trying to build, I think, a new audience. The issue is, though, what is, like, and the question going forward is, what is, like, the ceiling? Like, how much is it actually, long-term going to improve business? How many people are going to consistently be keeping up with Impact? I think Omega is going to help because he's still showing up, like you said, on Impact Wrestling. Right. And I think that's always going to help them. But they're also just going to be at a disadvantage because of the TV deal they have. So I think this, like, 9 times better than Bound for Glory, it's great. I hope they do that. I hope they do better than that moving forward. But reality is that Impact is likely going to do slightly better than they were doing before, and hopefully that's enough for them to make the pay-per-views profitable. Because I know that was a huge concern there, because you have to sell a certain amount of pay-per-views for it to be profitable to do in the first place. And they weren't doing that for a long time, and I think this is like one of the big ones that they were able to do. So hopefully they get to a point where they're consistently at least profitable and they're breaking above even. And I think that's kind of the goal at this point, and then slowly building off of that, because they have a base now. They have a base to build off of. It's all about taking advantage of it. So Scott D'Amore and companies got their work cut out for them.
And I think part of that, just piggybacking off what you're saying, I think part of that is going to help in the long run, because if you have a product that's building a bigger base and constantly getting better numbers, you're going to attract more talent. More people are going to want to come, And so, and to me, at this point, that's also just as important, is getting people to still watch. Because, I mean, a lot of your talent is older. A lot of your talent is, they don't work well with others, which is why they're at Impact Wrestling. But, I think the big thing is to get better talent over there, and
Hmm.
you can't do that with low fan rating.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing with Impact I wanted to talk to you about, because this was a little bit of a story that broke, because Mauro Ranallo did an interview, and in the interview he said he like really enjoyed his time doing commentary at Impact Rebellion. He was happy about it. He said everyone treated him with respect, which was something, and they treated him very nicely, which was, different from his environment in WWE. He didn't explicitly say that they treated him
Right.
bad, but he said it's a different environment. It was way more relaxed, way more supportive. In WWE, it's a little more tense. And he said that his passion for wrestling was reignited a little bit, and he
Yeah,
really wants to do this more in the future. So, what do you make of that? Do you think that we could possibly see Mauro Ranallo maybe returning, maybe not in a full time role yet, but could we see him returning and doing more matches in wrestling and calling more matches?
I think first off, like he did an amazing match.
Mm.
Besides what the in-ring product that Kenny Omega was producing and Rich Swann, the commentating was superb. You know what I mean? Like, and it was pretty much only on Ronaldo. It was all him. It was
Yeah,
all him. Like, oh my God, D'Lo. Oh my God. Like,
that's the
I've
real. That's the real deal, man.
I've
The piss on the
seen
seat.
wet socks that had more wrestling knowledge than he did. Like in that moment, like it was in Striker. My God, like oh my God, like I never thought he was good anyway, but good lord.
How?
But no, I could see him maybe a part time role doing like high profile matches, and maybe not just Impact, maybe AEW. I mean, like, get his feet wet, do some high profile matches and stuff. But it was good to see him. It was good to hear him on the call. Like, I, honestly, like we said before, I'm still a JR fan, and I still love Jerry the King Lawler, even though he has openly admit that he never really liked commentating. He never wanted to do it in the first place. But people just got used to his voice. But Ronaldo was probably one of the best commentators I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, like so. Just to point this out, Ronaldo at that pay per view was actually a pretty good pay per view. I think it was
It
pretty good.
was. I think it was.
Like it was up to a level I think of like a lot of WWE B pay per views. Like decently up to those standards as far as the in ring product. But my God, dude, like it was night and day. That main event was night like, and the rest of the night was night and day because of Ronaldo. It was
And I've
Morrow, like it took it to a whole different stratosphere, and I'm not capping when I say that. Like it was a whole different feel. It felt more important. Like you could see and that's the thing that I keep talking about commentators. It's why Adnan Burke is getting some flack. It's why Pat McAfee recently has been getting some flack on their commentary. Because when Morrow's in there, he is straight calling the match. He knows what he's talking about, and he's giving emotional feedback. And he's kind of like the center. He's kind of like helping the guide and navigating our emotions as well. Like that's what the commentator, the play-by-play guy is supposed to be. And I don't think. Look, if I'm being honest, there's nobody in current wrestling who does a better job of it than Mauro Ranallo. I think that's fair
no.
to say. Like at this point in their career, so I think it's good that his passion for wrestling was reignited by this because that means we could potentially see him on the call again, which is great for wrestling. I'm gonna put that on a T-shirt one day. Again, I think it's good for wrestling. I think it's good for him because he loves wrestling, and whether it's Impact, I would actually love if you want to sell some pay-per-views. Impact, do that. Mauro Ranallo calls the main events for your pay-per-views.
Right.
I think that you like that's a sizable, like that's a workable deal for Impact. Maybe you don't have to pay him for the whole night, or like you can pay him for that big spot. And like Morrow's a nice enough guy, and he loves wrestling enough. I don't think he's gonna ask him to break the bank for him, right?
No, no.
But I think that's like
I
a
don't
work.
really think it has anything to do with money. It's just his love for it.
Oh yeah, no, he doesn't. Like, let's be clear. Love Mauro Ranallo. He's the Showtime boxing announcer. Like he calls all of Mayweather's fights. He calls all the big money fights. I imagine he's not grasping for money at this moment. Could be
Yeah.
wrong. But
Didn't he
but
just
but
do the Triller fight too?
No, he did I think he did the first Triller fight, the one with
Okay.
Nate Robinson. But
Okay.
just to put a bow on it, I think that's a sizable deal, and it would make people interested. I know I would watch Impact Wrestling pay-per-views if I knew that in the main event I was getting Mauro Ranallo on the call, and then that's how you get people over, and it's just one thing leads to another. Dominoes, baby. That's how professional wrestling works.
Yeah.
I think it would be great for wrestling. It would be great for Mauro, I think, and who knows? Who knows? Again, who knows how much longer JR is going to be doing it? I think the end game would be to potentially, hopefully one day, get Mauro Ranallo to call AEW. I don't know whether that'd be a week-to-week thing, but I think he would be amazing. Like you want to bring AEW like to another level.
Treat it to Chris Jericho more often on the call.
Yeah. I mean, that would be cool.
I love Chris Jericho on the call.
I like Chris Jericho too. But again, I love JR as well. But let's be honest, man. If there was a switch today, if I could wave my magic wand and someone asked me, could you wave your magic wand and make the switch JR for Ranallo on AEW?
Yes.
I love JR, but yeah, because it would just take it to a whole different stratosphere, and I think people will get more over because like I said, I like what JR is doing, but you can tell he's not the same old JR.
Oh no,
and he doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be. It's fine, but. If that opportunity comes up, I think it would behoove AEW to potentially take a look at that and maybe work something out there. So
I agree. Totally agree.
All right, you agree. Yes.
I said I agree.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yes. No. Hall of Fame. That got not Hall of Fame, man. I know I say Coco Beware's the bottom. I really think Brutus the Barber Beefcake might be the bottom of the barrel. I genuinely think.
Yeah.
Is Pillman? Wait. Okay, we're gonna talk about this. Is Pillman in the Hall of Fame?
Good question. I don't know. I don't.
Wait. He can't. He has to be in the Hall of Fame. Brian Pillman cannot not be in the Hall of Fame. That would be. There is no Hall of Fame without Brian Pillman. Come on. Oh, he's no. Yeah, he's not. He's in the Canadian Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Which makes sense.
This is. Oh, wow. That's not great. WWE, get on it, man. Get on it. Come on. If there's any Canadian that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, it's Brian frickin' Pillman.
Brian.
I'm Brian fucking Pillman.
That's my man.
That was amazing. All right. Whenever you're ready.
Are you ready?
I'm prepared. I'm prepared, sir. Yeah. Bobbity boopity. All right, let's get to it. This past week, Dark Side of the Ring released part 1 of their 2-part season premiere for Dark Side of the Ring, Brian Pillman. So they're covering the life and story of Brian Pillman. We saw part 1. They released it on their YouTube channel. Part 2 is going to appear, like I said, on Thursday night. Trevor, you had a chance to watch it, I believe. What did you think of it? What did you think of part 1? What are you looking forward to in part 2? Let me know what you think.
So what's funny is I saw your video on it first before I actually watched it.
Damn it! Spoiler alert, Trevor.
But I didn't watch all the way through because I wanted to watch it. So,
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because I always thought I was so. Of course, I'm a bit older. And I remember seeing Scotch. I remember seeing him coming in the ring more. And I think I missed. I was on the tail end of the Varsity Blondes. I'm sorry, the Hollywood Blondes. And I remember him in the ring. Him and Steve Austin in the ring was just amazing. His career was up and down roller coaster, man. Him and Steve went through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
In WWE and in the ECW and all those things. And him being hurt for so long, and because honestly, I thought it was a shame that once he's hurt, after he's hurt, the first big feud you put him in is over. I thought that was a waste of talent. But
yeah, same. That was not a good feud.
It wasn't. But and actually, unfortunately, that was the last time he was in the ring because they found him in his hotel room after that. But Dark Side of the Ring did not disappoint. I don't think they've ever disappointed me so far. In the 2 seasons they've been on, they have not disappointed me at all. This was a good one. This,
Yeah,
this was really good. I can't wait for the second
yeah.
part.
I agree. Like Trevor said, I made a video outlining all my takeaways, and but I think my biggest one that I got from this that I didn't know before was, I guess, because like, look, professional wrestling, like, it gets a bad rap because people think like, oh, it's all about the bronze. There's no brains. There's no aptitude. There's no intelligence behind it. One thing that I learned from this, Trevor, was that Brian Pillman put a lot of thought into what he did, and it was a lot of it was meticulous. And like Steve Austin told a story about him and Brian Pillman in WCW when they were part of the Hollywood Blondes. They would be going up and down the rows. Austin would be driving. Pillman would be in the passenger seat, and the entire time he's sitting there, he's reading the dictionary. He's reading the dictionary. He's expanding his vocabulary, and it's not just like he said that he did it primarily for his promos, and so that Pillman could incorporate more words in his promos to stand out more. And that was great. I thought that was great. That's like a little tidbit we didn't know before, and I think that's the part Dark Side of the Ring. What they do so great is that obviously their bottom line is telling tragedies in sports. It's called Dark Side of the Ring.
Right.
But they have such a great they do such a great job of giving you these insights, these tidbits that are positives as well sprinkled throughout the story, and they give you a bigger picture of everything going into what eventually happens. And that's what we got with part 1. And it was so insightful. I had no idea that Brian Pillman was so thoughtful about his character. I had no idea. Look, I knew about the I Respect You Booker man and how he worked WCW into a shoot and got his release and all that, which was the genius it took to do all of that, by the way. And and the whole time playing up this gimmick, the fact that he did this entirely in order to get more money, the fact that he did this entirely to sell people on his gimmick, it was so smart. When you think of I genuinely think Brian Pillman, just by those actions, especially that work shoot, might be one of the most might be one of the smartest moves in professional wrestling history for him to do. Because what did that lead to? It led to the first downside guaranteed contract in WWE history.
Sure
that is crazy, man, when you think about it. And
he was one of the biggest free agents in wrestling at one point in time.
100% agree.
He was amazing.
Yeah, he's great. And like you said, part 2 is coming out, and obviously we know that what happens. But I think for Brian Pillman's legacy, I think this is such an important story to be told, because a lot of times when you hear about Brian Pillman, it's like, oh, he's a loose cannon, he's crazy, he's unhinged, that's all you ever hear from WWE. That's all you ever hear from whenever anyone talks about it. They gloss over everything, and it always comes back to loose cannon, unhinged. But this showed, I guess, a little bit of a dichotomy in his own character, how he played this loose cannon character, and somehow maybe he went a little too hard into it, and maybe that's what led to some of his problems. I mean, we'll find out obviously on Thursday when the season premieres, but I think it's just so interesting, this kind of stuff. And it gives you a whole different perspective on Brian Pillman, and I enjoyed it. I cannot wait for the next one. And you can honestly say the same thing about almost any Dark Side of the Ring they've done. It gives you, I think, they do such a great job. These guys at Vice, I forgot the director's names, but they do such a great job.
It's funny too, because it gives you kind of like a horror show type vibe, but it's not really trying to do that. It's trying to tell a story. And like you said, it's called Dark Side of the Ring for a reason. They tell the dark side of these wrestlers. I think one of the biggest things that stuck with me was the Chris Benoit one from the season 2 premiere, and when Chris Jericho comes on the screen and says, "If you do not want to hear people praising and I forget the actual word he used, but pretty much making a murderer sound good.
Yeah,
turn this off right now." And to me, that's just from that season alone. That's one of the most iconic lines in that season. Because I mean, that's exactly what they were doing to a degree. And like it's just they're so good. They're so good at what they do. So I mean, it's for a long time you didn't have a show quite like this for wrestling. And I think they're good for wrestling too, actually, unfortunately. Telling some of the things that we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
And like
the Bruiser Brody one. Did you watch that one?
oh yeah. I've seen all of them. The Bruiser Brody one, honestly, to this day, I think is my favorite one.
Yeah.
Because
He's the
that's just
saddest one, I think.
it's the saddest one, but it's weird because Dark Side of the Ring, yes, they tell very sad stories, obviously. But man, like they tell some like they make you emotional though, like in a weird way because I think hearing from the families especially, that's something you almost never hear from. That's like
Right.
you hear from other wrestlers, you know what they were like up and down the road. Like the Owen Hart one is probably the best example of this.
That's actually
Everyone knows the stories about Owen Hart that wrestlers have told, whether it be Roddy Piper, Vince Russo, JR, those stories have been told at nauseum. Jim Cornette, but rarely have we ever heard Martha Hart, his kids. We've never heard from, like give their stories. David Benoit in the Chris Benoit one was another voice we haven't heard of. Nancy Benoit's sister was in that one as well. We had never heard getting that family side of the story. Gino Hernandez's mother. That's another one that sticks out to me. Like that's another big one that sticks out to me. Getting the family side of that, I think, was so important in some of these stories because we forget a lot of times these people. They are people first, wrestlers second, and I think understanding that these people that we grew up watching, these people that we to an extent idolize, these people that we to an extent we buy pay-per-views for, we praise as being fans of. They have lives outside of wrestling, and like no story made that more clear than the Owen Hart one. The Owen Hart was crystal clear. Owen Hart, yeah, he loved wrestling, but it was like all about family at the end of the day, and like that's what people. And like that's another thing I just want to hit on this point because like there's a lot of wrestling fans who, for whatever reason, they believe. There's a lot of wrestling fans who, for whatever reasons, think like Owen Hart should be in the Hall of Fame. And, Martha Hart is being stubborn. Martha Hart is being this, that. Like, they're blaming Martha Hart as if she did something wrong by not letting him in the Hall of Fame. Or the other one that you get is, like, Benoit should be in the Hall of Fame.
And not be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, like I think that's abundantly clear. And then with the and anyone who blames Martha Hart, honestly, about, like, oh, she's not letting Owen in the Hall of Fame. Like when Mark Henry said that at the Hall of Fame, that's like a moment. I didn't even I hadn't seen Dark Side of the Ring hadn't even come out. But in his speech, Mark Henry at his Hall of Fame speech a few years back, he said he's told Martha, he's like, Martha, bring Owen home, let him be in the Hall of Fame. And that was like one where I was like, even then I was like, man, best to leave that one alone.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's true what she said. Martha Hart should never be forced to let the company that killed her husband praise him and make money off of him.
Nope.
That should never be allowed to happen, ever.
Nope.
And
that's that you don't see a lot of his merchandise in like the Legend section on the WWE Shop Network. She won't allow it. She won't allow that. Like she sells his merchandise for charities, but it's not allowed from WWE. And I honestly agree with her. I'm more her side.
Wholeheartedly, man. It's like, and I get it, man. We're fans of Owen Hart. We want him to be immortalized. You want to immortalize Owen Hart, man? Go give to the Owen Hart Foundation. You want to immortalize Owen Hart? Go watch that Dark Side of the Ring and go watch a match. It's not the Hall of Fame isn't. We talk about the Hall of Fame all the time. The Hall of Fame isn't the end of everything. It's not the end all be all. It's not this great thing that it's been made out to be. Like X-Pac is a 2-time Hall of Famer. Coco Bewer's in the Hall of Fame. Dude, it's whatever WWE is feeling in that moment, right? They have a quota to fill. They just want to do it to have another extra night. And look, sometimes they have magical moments at the Hall of Fame, yeah, but for anyone to blame Owen Hart's family, it's just get over yourself. Get over it. It's not that important. What's more important is the lives that can be affected by Owen Hart's legacy, and real lives can be affected by the Owen Hart Foundation. So that's one way to support.
I am getting my first wrestling tattoo soon, and it's going to be Owen Hart.
We're gonna talk about that offline. I'm gonna try to talk. Not that I don't love Owen Hart. Might try to talk you out of that one.
I like that too. Sorry.
Yeah. It's like X-Pac. You wake up, you get an X-Pac tattoo on your chest. How much money would it take for you to get Sean Waltman's face tattooed on your chest?
Oh, I don't think there's enough money. I don't think there's enough money.
All right. Well, on that note, guys, if you haven't already, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell for new daily videos as we move on to our fan question of the week. You want to get involved in the channel? Leave a question in the comment section of any of our videos. Tweet at us, DM us on Twitter, whatever you got to do, at Real Take Sports. Email us. That's how this has been coming in. Email us, realtakesportstalk@gmail.com. Again, realtakesportstalk@gmail.com. Send us your questions. You might be featured next week on the show. This week's fan question, Trevor, was a doozy. All right, so Sasha from Texas asked us this week. So Sasha from Texas this week asked us, was there ever something so stupid, meaning a storyline, so stupid that made you stop watching wrestling, or a point in time where you stopped watching wrestling entirely, and why? So, Trevor, I'm going to give you the floor on that. When did you stop watching wrestling and why?
So there was a point in time where I sporadically watched wrestling for a while. One of the dumbest things that I think made me like step back, like, you know what the fuck am I watching? Was probably Mae Young giving birth to a hand. That was probably one of the worst things I've ever seen on wrestling. Like, I mean, that and Gene Snitsky drop kicking a baby. Like, that was.
It wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault.
That was pretty bad, too. Like, I mean, those are times, like, I didn't, like, completely stop. Right? Like I said, it was sporadic. Like, I would, like, stop for a couple months and then maybe go back. But, like, I think I honestly think what really stopped me watching, like, Raw altogether was, I don't know, just the fact that it sucked.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I think that's what it was.
I have a story. Like, I'll get to, like, when I stopped. I actually did stop watching for a little bit, but I'll get to the story. Like, for me, one thing that embarrassed me, because like, we talk about this a lot. Like, sometimes as a wrestling fan, you're kind of put into a position, like, when you're showing other people wrestling, you're just like, oh man, you got to check it out. You're trying to get people in. I try to get Ryan into wrestling. So we have a mutual friend named Ryan. And so I actually had him, he and I watched, what was it? We watched WrestleMania X7. We watched WrestleMania X7. We watched the main event, Rock versus Austin. I thought that would be like a good thing to introduce him to wrestling. And he loved it. Ryan absolutely loved it.
Right.
So I was like, okay, cool. You know, and then like I'm sitting down one day in the living room, and it's my roommate. And I put on, I think it was, what was it? It was I forgot which event it was. I usually never forget events. I'm usually in this fucking encyclopedia when it comes to pay-per-views and stuff like that. But there was a match between Vince McMahon and Stephanie McMahon. I think it was No Mercy 2002 or 2003, somewhere along those lines. Anyway, so I'm watching this and I'm like, yo, Ryan, you want to watch this? Like, he was in the living room. I was like, you want to watch this? He's like, sure. And then we proceed to watch Vince McMahon beat up his daughter for about like 20 minutes. And that was like one thing, like Ryan, I think after like a few minutes was just like, I'm gonna sit this one out. And like that's one of those moments where you're just like, as a wrestling fan, this was
bad.
This was bad. Like how is this supposed to bring any eyes to the product? This is like not even. Yes, Vince McMahon is a dick. We've understood this. He doesn't need to beat up his daughter for us to understand he's a terrible human being. You know, like. So that was one moment where I was just like, oh man, wrestling is oof. And there's a lot more moments in that, but that was one moment for me. But when I stopped watching entirely, like, because I did stop watching entirely. So 2008 was like a year where I kind of stopped keeping up with wrestling. And I don't know what it was. I think it was Cena. I think Cena winning the Rumble in 2008 was kind of where I was just like, oh, well, okay, Cena wins. We get it. That was when the meme was starting to become a thing. Like Cena wins, end of story. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna watch something else. I will start watching more football, more other sports and stuff like that. So wrestling got away from me a little bit. I tried to get back into it in '09, and then the whole like Orton Triple H feud happened, and I was just like, ugh, yeah, was not a big fan of that. And then like I completely missed two WrestleManias. Like I stopped watching wrestling for 2 years, almost completely. Like it was WrestleMania 26 and WrestleMania 27. Like those two, I just like missed. I knew The Rock came back. I watched like a clip of that, but I was just like, okay, cool. He's doing a thing with Cena, whatever. Then I watched, but there was one thing I watched in between, and that was like Daniel Bryan coming in NXT because I was like, oh, I like that one. I'm gonna go check out what he's doing, and God bless him, they had him doing some weird shit. But it was weird. Like that point in time in wrestling was a weird time to be a wrestling fan. Like 2009 to 2011 for me. Like that was like I became a lapsed fan during that time, and it was just because that was a weird time for WWE. There was no competition whatsoever. TNA was like they were doing their thing, but they had just brought in Hogan, and like that really fizzled out quick, as we remember. And
nothing really interesting about it at the time. Like, and there was too much Vince McMahon on TV at that point too. So it's just yeah. Because I think honestly, I really stopped watching when Shawn Michaels and God fought Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon.
We get it. Vince McMahon is a heel. You don't need to bring the God into this for us to understand
I've told you this before, but like one of the most memorable things about that whole stupid thing was like, oh, he takes a bottle of water and throws it on the floor and goes, hey Shane, look what I'm doing. He's like, see what I'm doing? He's like, yeah, making a mess. He goes, no, who am I? I'm God.
Walking on water. Oh man, that was crazy. But one thing that did bring me back into wrestling, like full time, like I think this might have been a thing for a lot of other people as well. I don't know, but the Summer of Punk thing, when CM Punk cut that pipe bomb promo, that was the first time I watched it after it had happened, and I was like, oh, this is cool. He's literally saying, and this was the whole point of the promo. He's literally saying everything that I feel about wrestling, everything that's wrong with wrestling. And I thought that was cool, and that's what got me back in. And I've been unmercilessly a wrestling fan since, and like I've consistently kept up with the product since, right? But it was again like it took that for me to come back. It took Bryan when Bryan won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Like that was like when I was like, oh, okay, yep, I'm gonna ride this out for the rest of time, hopefully. And AEW is like really I think it impassioned my love for wrestling, which is exactly why I do this podcast. So, and the other question is like, do I see myself being a lapsed fan once again? I actually don't. I think wrestling is at such a good point that obviously I can't tell 20 years down the line, but I think in the distant future, yeah, I will likely still be a fan of wrestling. You can't quit it. It's like a bad habit. It's like smoking. You can't quit it, man. You can't quit it. No matter. Mae Young gave birth to a hand, yet in 2021, Trevor, you are still talking about wrestling on YouTube.
I am. I should have sought out for therapy after that shit. That shit was just, dude. I remember watching that at home and like what the hell? And my mom at the time come upstairs. She's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, you don't want to know. Like you don't want to know what the fuck what I just saw. My brother come running in, like as he was watching on the other TV, he was like, "Did you see that?" I was like, "Unfortunately, like it was. I mean, it was awful, but it was one of those things that it was like a train wreck. You can't stop watching. You know what I mean? But like I did like, of course, there was a lapse in there, and then I think there was another one that was about maybe 3 years, and I'm trying to remember around where that was. I think it may have been right before CM Punk dropped that pipe bomb promo, like you said. And then what really brought me back was NXT, actually. NXT really brought me back because I had watched Finn Balor and a lot of his early work over the Indies and things like that. Even his work that he did with Nigel McGuinness. And if anyone doesn't know, I am a huge Nigel McGuinness fan. Love Nigel McGuinness. I watched all.
I am a Desmond Wolf fan, sir.
Oh, excuse me, sir. But yeah, and I was a huge fan of his. But and then so got into ROH. Was a very big fan of that damn faction with Zach Gowen in it and Seth Rollins at one point. Anyway, but and so I watched that, and I ended up watching. It's kind of like a rabbit hole. I just fell down and started watching more indie promotion.
I think the network played a huge part in bringing people back to wrestling too. I think when people found out, like, oh, for $9.99 a month, I can get every pay-per-view ever.
Yeah,
like there was, and I can go back and watch those.
Too, actually,
I think, like, they only got up to 1.5 million subscribers, and we'll never know how many of those were lapsed fans, right? But I mean, look, for being honest, like I think, like, it played a huge part in, like, I guess, reinvigorating people's passion for wrestling, like, so. Yeah. So again, it's hit and miss sometimes, but man, wrestling, when it's great, it's great.
It's great.
It is great.
Watch old wrestling.
Yeah.
That's basically what I got.
R.I.P. R.I.P. the network though. R.I.P.
Yeah, because Peacock sucks. I'm sorry.
No, it does. It does. Moving on, let's talk about this. This was some big news from SmackDown. So, last week on SmackDown, we had the title versus career match. Daniel Bryan versus the Tribal Chief Samoa Joe had a very good match, but eventually Daniel Bryan, he couldn't keep up. He got locked into the chokehold. He was passed out and he lost. And then afterwards, he came out. Cesaro came out to help him, but he couldn't stop Roman Reigns from delivering one final blow after the match, a concerto, to officially end Daniel Bryan's time on the SmackDown roster. Daniel Bryan has lost his spot on SmackDown. Trevor, what do we think of the match? What do we think this means? What's next for Bryan in WWE?
Well, we kind of called this last week. This is kind of what I thought was going to happen. Now, does that mean? And I'm big on, like, language. So the language of this is he leaves SmackDown. Is he done on WWE? Period. Can he not? Can he go to Raw, or can he go to NXT if he wanted to, or is he just done in a WWE ring? Period. The way Vince McMahon likes to twist and turn things around, it may not be the end of his career. But if it is, what does he do after this? Does he go behind the scenes of WWE? We talked about some of his dream matches, some of his fantasy matches that he wanted to have with people from New Japan. A match with Kenny Omega, a match with Will Ospreay. Like, there are some matches out there that he has openly said that he wanted to have. So, is this his segue of going to that, or is this what's done for him? Either way, he's Daniel Bryan, and he will go down in Wrestling Hall of Fame as one of the greatest technical wrestlers that ever lived. So,
yeah,
I mean,
I think that's fair. For me, with the match, I thought what was interesting was Cesaro coming out in the end. I thought Cesaro coming out in the end, like, I think this could lead to an eventual feud. It's going to lead to a feud with him and Roman. What am I talking about? Eventual. That's
kind of what I thought was going to happen without Daniel being there. I kind of thought that's what they were going to do. I mean, and it's about goddamn time. Cesaro should have fought for a title years ago.
Yeah, Cesaro's never had a world title match?
No, never.
Like all of this talk,
never.
And all because Vince thinks his accent it makes him like not connect with the fans. Just listen. But as far as Daniel Bryan goes, it's also important to note that the former WWE champion was removed from the official roster spot on SmackDown on WWE's website and moved to the alumni section on WWE.com, where his name rests alongside those of Damian Sandow, Darren Young, and Dawn Marie. A lot of D's there. So like, WWE's done this though in the past, like with storylines. So for me, look for him to. He still has a few months left on his deal. Daniel Bryan is still under contract with WWE until September. He signed a 3-year deal around that time of 2018. So his contract's likely going to be up later this year. And I would not be surprised if it elapses then. We'll talk about his future there. But over the next few months, I think it would be plausible for him to show up to Raw. We'll get to Raw. It's a 3-hour show, and they are having an extraordinarily tough time filling those 3 hours, as we've painfully seen over the past few months. So look for him. I think the move is for him to go to Raw to try to fill out that roster like a little bit, because they are lacking star power right now. It's insane the fact that they're lacking star power given some of the people they have, but nevertheless,
it's sad too.
Yeah, it's very sad. But nevertheless, I think he's gonna be there. So again, and for Roman Reigns, I think that winning this match is a big deal because again, it just puts him over, more dangerous. Keep building him up. Keep building him up as a super heel. Eventually, he's gonna turn into a natural babyface, which is exactly what WWE wanted the entire time, and they're proving that it was never that hard. Just make things interesting, WWE. That's it. Just make it interesting. Don't be like, I can and I will. No. Superman punch. Distinctively different than a Superman punch. All right. So we mentioned Bryan a little bit in that match, but let's talk about Bryan's future and some problems that he actually noted about his neck. So Daniel Bryan in a recent interview said that his neck is, quote, wrecked. And, hearing that from somebody who has like a history of neck injuries like Bryan, it's kind of worrisome, right, Trevor? It's very worrisome. We don't like to hear it. He said his neck is wrecked. He talked in the same interview about his future and how, he can't be a full-time wrestler anymore. He can't because of the strain it's put on his body. He wants to be able to lift his daughter up. That's one thing that he very clearly said. He said one of the things that he's worried about is he won't have the ability to lift his daughter up on his shoulders, and that's something that he's repeatedly cared about. That's something he's repeatedly said he wants to be there for his family. He doesn't want to be that wrestler who stayed in the game for too long and is suffering later in life. So that's what he said. We know his contract is expiring relatively soon. What do you make of those comments from Daniel about his neck, about his body, and what could that mean for his future?
Again, he said this last week as well. It is such of a kind soul and honest as Daniel has been with his fans in recent years. I believe every word. But is it bad enough? Is it too bad for him to continue wrestling? The only person that can say that is him. But he might be using like this career-ending match to hold his kids, to take care of himself, so he can have the ability to still be the dad he wants to be. He's right. So, and it's not just wrestling; it's athletes in general. Some athletes just don't know when to say no, just don't know when to walk away, and and sometimes end up getting super hurt or not being the athlete that they once were. So, if that's his reasoning, and this really is him putting up the tights, so to speak, then good for him. He's getting out at the right time. He's doing what he should do for him and his family.
Yeah. I think it's probably a good move on his part. We saw a neck injury took him out of action for over a year during the best time of his career. So I think that he's looking out for himself and he's looking out for his family. You can never blame anyone for that. That's why all these marks on their computers who were like, "Oh, Daniel Bryan, tough it out." Like I saw that, and I was just like, "That's insane. That's insane, dude." Like the dude has literally given everything and some to wrestling throughout his life, and I think like for anyone to say at the age of 40, Daniel Bryan shouldn't be allowed to make his own decision about his future is asinine. He should be, whether he wants to stay in WWE and only wrestle like big programs, or whether he wants to just never wrestle again. I think Daniel Bryan, his legacy will remain intact. That's one thing we do know. Daniel Bryan's legacy will remain intact. He is going to go down as one of the most beloved wrestlers by the fans ever. He's going to go down as one of the best technical wrestlers of all time. And like as all around performers go, like man, like if we're just talking about pure ability, like in the ring, on promos, like telling a story, everything, man, like I don't think you can find anyone better than Bryan. Like as far as like just the ability. Like, you know, whether we're talking about execution later, or like, you know, he hasn't had the same opportunities as some other people, but man, like the ability on Bryan, I think is like out of this, just insane, man. And he got so much better. Like he just keeps on getting better.
That are as good as Bryan, or were as good as Bryan. Like Bryan is just, yeah, he's crazy. He's amazing.
He's amazing. You know what else you know what else I thought was amazing, Trevor? So your favorite Hall of Famer, X-Pac, actually weighed in on this. So X-Pac said in an interview that he believes that WWE should allow Bryan to wrestle elsewhere while still under contract of WWE. So the scenario he laid out essentially is something along the lines of Bryan re-signing with WWE, but having a contract that allows him to work independence, that allows him to work with other companies. And you know, the reason for that he gave was twofold. He said, one, Bryan has kind of earned that right at this point as far as like where he is and who he is in his career. And two, the other big thing that he noted was that it would help WWE in the long run kind of, you know, maybe bring fans over or help WWE kind of spread their words elsewhere. So like that was an interesting like scenario, I thought. And from Sean Waltman of all people. What do you have to say about that?
Didn't Hulk Hogan have a similar deal back in the day?
Oh like yes, Hulk Hogan did do similar things back in the day. When he went to New Japan as the WWE champion, where he called the WWE championship a trinket on a Christmas tree, and said the real belt is the New Japan belt. Which, hey, doing business, but man, state of your title, mate. Like, come on.
Right.
But yeah, what do you think about that scenario though? Like that Sean Waltman lays out.
Honestly, I think that would make sense to me. You know, it's certain wrestlers that I think should be able to do that. He's one of them. Mainly because he's getting to the end of his career, and we all know it. You know what I mean? And there are still some things career-wise that he still wants to do. And he's been pretty much. I don't want to necessarily say ambassador, but he's really been one of your better talents, one of your better people. He's trained people on the side. He's done a lot behind the scenes with WWE. Like if anyone honestly deserved it, Bryan does. But I feel like there's so many other talents you can do that with as well. You know what I mean? I feel like Ricochet should be allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like what's the other Muslim guy that was part of
Ali?
Yeah. I think he should be able to do that as well. Like there are certain wrestlers I think should be allowed to do that, and I think that was part of the reason why Austin Aries left, because he wasn't able to travel around and wrestle different people, and he wanted to do that.
It is an interesting thought. Like people that like WWE apparently has a hard time finding creative for all the people that work there at certain points. So it's an interesting thought that, like, you know, how do you keep these wrestlers relevant that are under your contract? How do you keep them relevant at the same time while, you know, like not like necessarily like, you know, letting them go? I think that's a very simple like answer. I think maybe you don't have to let them wrestle for AEW, right? But like letting them wrestle for like Ring of Honor at this point, letting them wrestle for you know, indies, like whether it be PWG, MLW, I know is beginning to do some sort of deal with WWE, and we could see that in place. Like that would be good, because you would be able to build these guys on the side, because WWE, all of their spaces, all of their brands are just so saturated at this point with talent and stars and people they want to push and people who they don't want to push, that I think like that could be a solution to a lot of the problems that they've had. And again, who benefits from this? Like you said, people like Aleister Black, people like Ricochet, people like Ali, people who aren't being used and who most definitely have the talent to be big stars. And like I said, Ricochet is probably the biggest one. Chad Gable. Chad Gable is another one, man. Like, again, I really hope, like, if I'm AEW, man, I don't care. Like, Chad Gable's a free agent. That is like one name. Like, we talk about how like their roster is getting saturated and like they're at the point where they probably shouldn't be signing too many.
That's what I would definitely jump at.
That's what, dude. He literally is the second coming of Kurt Angle. He is the second, and it's like he's so crisp in the ring. His promos, like
they've gotten so much better. His promos
gotten so much better. But like even when he was part of American Alpha, like his promos were so good when he was in NXT. He was having amazing promos, and he had this great babyface fire. He was and like he's so crisp in the ring. The dude, like, if anyone should have been just Kurt Angle's illegitimate son in storyline, should have been Chad Gable. Like that's like no question. Like come on. Also, I don't know. WWE also doing the whole my black son gimmick. Like. Like that's literally like they got that from the Family Guy sketch. Anyway, but either way, like I hope they do that. But as far as Daniel goes, I mean, I don't think he's gonna re-sign with WWE. I think he's.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I think he's gonna go and. Again, I think it's a 50-50 thing as far as I'm concerned, whether he retires and never wrestles again, or whether he does like a part-time kind of deal with a different company. I don't think he's going to tie himself down, though. I think if he does do it, he's going to be kind of like an independent contractor and doing his own thing and not necessarily exclusively with AEW or exclusively with Ring of Honor. I think he's going to be like a kind of like a traveling attraction, which we have not seen in wrestling in such a long time.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I think he could do that. He's big enough where he could do that and make it work, and he could draw money, and he would help out other wrestling companies. So I think that'd be a great way for Brian to do things. And I think we're kind of seeing like a little bit of return with that with Kenny Omega too, like the whole traveling champion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. I like that. Getting back to the roots, pal. All right. Anything else to add about Brian before we move on?
No, I think you said the best, my man.
Goddamn, pal. Thanks.
Goddamn.
Contribute or you're fired. It's all right. All Red Everything. Eva Marie. She reappeared on WWE TV for the first time since 2016 in a vignette that was it was very Eva Marie-ish. Eva Marie could be returning in a matter of weeks. What do we think of this, Trevor? What did we think about the vignette? But what do we think about her return to WWE, and what could this mean?
Gotta be honest, the vignette wasn't bad for Eva Marie. It was, like you said, it was very Eva Marie-ish. But I gotta be honest with you, I'm not really that excited about her return. I mean, not saying that she's awful, because she wasn't awful. She just wasn't. I guess they didn't really use her that well. I guess that's the best thing. They didn't really use her that well. And honestly, in the state of their women's championship, the women's division, I don't really think they're going to use her that much. Again, honestly, I think she's just going to get lost in the shuffle. Because you're really going to put her up against Ripley for a title shot? You think she's really that good? Like, I just don't know how they're going to use her. I'm really interested to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you. Really, like it's just, I think this is gonna phase out pretty quickly. Like Eva Marie actually in 2016 had a shot to like the stuff she was doing on SmackDown was actually interesting. I liked where that was going. So in 2016, Eva Marie, when after the brand split, she was on SmackDown. That was like her big push or whatever. She had this gimmick where she would come out and always find a way to get out of a match before it starts. And it was like, it got to the point where people were wondering, when is she going to wrestle her first match? Whether it was a wardrobe malfunction, whether it was, she's injured, or she just didn't come. Like it got people interested. And I liked where that was going. Because it was like,
did so much with that, actually.
Yeah, and then, she eventually, Drugs. She got popped for a test, but that is what it is. I think that Eva Marie could have the potential of doing like she could he has potential. Like here's the thing. At the end of the day, she's really good at getting heat. That's one thing we know from her time in Total Divas. It's one thing we know from her time on SmackDown. She's very good at getting heat. No, all pun intended at that point. But I think that she has a ceiling to her, and it depends on how WWE uses her, and they have to be patient. They have to be patient with it. But if there's one star, I think they would be patient with it. It's Eva Marie, because it's 2021 and they're still pushing her. 7 years later, Eva Marie is still getting pushed by WWE. Yeah. So, God bless her. I wish her the best.
You got to be that desperate for talent at this point.
Goddamn, pal. who the hell is Asuka?
Asuka?
Goddamn, pal. Eva Marie. Where's she at? We fired her, Mr. Mike Man. Goddamn, pal.
Did I do
Go
that?
get her again. Give her all the money. I got this peacock money. Goddamn, pal. It's like, Ricochet. What the hell is that? I could imagine Vince like in the back, just like, oh, Mr. Mike Man, we
don't know what it is, sir.
You don't know who that is? You don't know who that is? Hello, Mr. Mike Man.
Who's that? Which one is that one?
Come on. There were only 2 Stooges, and it's not Pat Patterson.
Of course, so it's got to be the other one.
Oh my God, we love him. All right. Anyway, let's we've exhausted the Eva Marie talk here.
There's not much to talk about.
Not much to talk about. Let's talk about this. This was an interesting thing, and I think it's make for a good conversation. Let's talk about Brawny the Strowman making comments about WWE Raw. So this week, Braun Strowman did an interview where he called Raw chaotic. Here's the quote. The boys and girls in the back, we're all getting... The boys and girls in the back, we all work really hard, Strowman said, in regards to the Raw roster. But it's a little chaotic because everything's been all over the place. People get sick. Things change last minute. And part of me just enjoys that, I'm not going to lie. But this past Monday was a prime example. Everything was just crazy because people got hurt. People were sick. All of a sudden, in 3 matches, we have 3 matches in under an hour's worth of a 3-hour show. You're freaking out. But you get out there and you just hit a home run, and it's so satisfying. So he spun it a little bit in a WWE way, right? And fair balls to him. He might actually enjoy the chaos in it. Some people thrive in chaos. But one thing he did say there that he acknowledged was the last minute changes, that Raw felt chaotic with everything that's going on. And if you watch it, man, I wish it came off as a chaotic show. It would at least be interesting, but it just comes off as so flat. Like, Raw, I think, is literally in its worst spell in a very long time. Like, as far as, like...
It's getting worse every week.
Every week. And it's like, you have this guy, you have Drew McIntyre as the star, and, like, it's not his fault. Like, on some Snitsky shit, it wasn't his fault. It's not anybody in the main event's fault, but it's not even the talent's fault. I don't blame them. It's just
Braun Strowman can't even save. None of them are able to save what's going on. It's just
AJ Styles, like God of wrestling. AJ Styles isn't even able to save this show.
No,
I don't know, man. Like, it's just, again, I guarantee you it's been chaotic because we know that. I heard that from everyone. Vince likes to change things last minute, especially for Raw. Everything gets changed last minute. Things come up, like the writing teams are messed up. Writers don't know how to write for wrestlers. It's coming across as terrible. Like, and the fans just don't like it. That's why Raw is slipping under 2 million watchers every week, which almost never happens in their history. So it's a problem, man. Like, how does Raw fix this? Genuinely, how does Raw fix this huge slump that they're in? Because right now, dude, they start off at a low level already, but it just gets worse and worse as the show drags on for 3 hours, and then by the end of it, you're not even watching Lashley, McIntyre, and Strowman kick lumps out of each other. You're just like, I'm done.
I think at this point it has a lot to do with writing too. Like, I mean, it has a whole hell of a lot to do with writing. Like, I can't really blame it on the talent, but like it seems like they're putting people on TV that people don't really want to see. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not saying that they don't want to see Drew McIntyre because you want to see Drew McIntyre, right? But you break up one of the most successful factions you've had the past couple of years. You break up the Hurt Business, then you let you get T-Bar and fucking
Mace.
Mace, Drajakovic, whatever, and have them help out MVP and what's that, which makes no sense. Then you break up Shelton Benjamin, what's his name, like that, which they shouldn't have been. The Hurt Business shouldn't have been broken up anyway. Like they're just kicking dirt on a moon, and it just makes no sense. And then, like, not taking anything away from Bad Bunny because I was thoroughly entertained by it. But the most entertaining thing that came from Raw was a match with Bad Bunny and Miz. Like, come on. I mean, you have all this talent you do nothing with. You have the writers obviously aren't doing enough to even try to save this place. The chaos in the back. You have wrestlers who seem like they really don't even want to perform because it's just so chaotic. You know, I don't know what you do at this point, but I think it starts at the writers.
When here's the thing, dude. When you're watching a wrestling show where they control the audience, and the audience still comes off as being dead and not into it, that is a bad sign for your television show. That is a bad sign. Because here's the thing. The worst part about when Raws were at their worst, in that era, like 2009, 2010, 2011, in the mid 90s especially, when the crowds were dead, that was when wrestling's at its worst. When there's no fire, fans aren't cheering, they're not excited. We've been seeing that during a pandemic where there's no live fans on Raw. Legitimately. Where Kevin Dunn literally pipes in whatever noise he wants. But we're not hearing anything. And that's also indicative, I think, I don't know whether it's the spots they're booking, they're not engaging the fake crowd noise or whatever. I don't know what it is, man. I just know that SmackDown is not having the same problem. So this is
no.
It's not a thing where oh my God, it's just bad taste on my part, right? Or it's bad taste on some fans' part. No, SmackDown has been a great show. I think last week's SmackDown, or 2 weeks ago, SmackDown was actually better than a lot of shows AEW's been doing.
Yeah.
SmackDown has been having kick-ass shows. They've been the best show, up there with NXT, even WWE's are putting out on a weekly basis. So I just don't.
NXT's been hit or miss here recently too.
Yeah, it's been very hit or miss recently. So it's not a problem of taste. It's a matter of there's actually something wrong with that television show. And let's be honest about it, Trevor. 3 hours. It's I think we
that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing. It's a 3 hour show.
Look, I understand we have a lot of talent. What good is a 3 hour show though if you're not going to use the talent? If you're not going to showcase them? It's what good is having Ricochet? What good is having Aleister Black? All these guys that are amazing wrestlers. What good is it having them if you're not going to use them at all? It's a waste of time. It's literally a waste of time. Especially considering you're going to spend 30 minutes recapping what happened in hour 1 throughout the show anyway. I understand the money. I understand the contract, all that stuff. But come on, man. I think we learned. There's a reason that Tony Khan is so adamant about never making Dynamite 3 hours long. Because we learned. Raw was a test for that. A weekly 3 hour wrestling show. It has not worked. And it can't work. It's too much. It is too much.
Way too much.
Way too much. Man. I don't want to end the show giving out about WWE again. We do every week. I'm just annoyed.
There's nothing else.
Man. Anything else to talk about? Anything else? Today is for anyone watching, today was the 90th anniversary, for those who aren't aware, the 90th anniversary today of the original Montreal Screwjob that happened between Ed Strangler Lewis and Henri Deglon. I did a video about that today that was released. Be sure to check that out. I chronicled it, but that was like researching that was interesting for me. I don't know. Have you had a chance to watch that yet, or?
No, I haven't had a chance to watch it. I've heard of it. I know what it is. I know the bits and pieces of it, but I have not watched your video yet.
Yeah, well, we'll make sure you watch it and hit that like button, bitch. But I'll just say this: I'm not gonna like ruin anything. Like, so like one of the things I learned doing that is like, dude, wrestling, like, you know how we say wrestling, you know, the outcomes are predetermined, but it's not fake, right? Wrestling's not fake.
Right.
Wrestling was especially not fake back then. Like the outcomes were still predetermined. But back in the 30s, man, wrestling was so not fake. Like, people were going into business for themselves all the time. Literally, Ed Strangler Lewis is one of the greatest world champions ever in wrestling history. He had this ability, like, he was so strong that Olympians couldn't even beat him. Like, if he wanted to take down Olympians, he would. Like, and he wasn't even like a trained amateur wrestler. He was just a strong son of a bitch. Like, just a big time mauler, and like he was taking people down. It's like if he stole the world title. He literally stole the world title once because he just didn't want to do business. That's because crazy. He felt like he was wronged. And I chronicled that in the video. So be sure to check that out, guys, if you haven't already. Yeah. But man, you see, going back and like just like going through this old wrestling stuff, man, it's interesting. Some of these stories are interesting.
Yeah, they are.
Like, I get why wrestling has like the reputation it does. Like it's crazy, man. This guy, Ed Strangler Lewis, man. He's like, imagine if Mang, just like every match, Mang plus like the ability, I guess, more of an ability to amateur wrestling. He did have a little amateur wrestling background, but imagine Mang just going into business for himself against a world champion.
That's crazy.
And pinning him down.
Yeah, wow.
That's what Ed Lewis was. He was like Mang or Haku. Oh, I don't know. Haku. If you don't know Haku was Mang, then you don't know who Haku was. But Haku. Love the Samurai Jack references. Trevor, anything else? Anything bothering you? Anything happy you want to mention? Like, what's going on?
I have my Twitter up and running finally.
Oh yeah, I forgot to make the graphic for that. Sorry, we will have that next week. But shout out your Twitter real quick.
But yeah. So I have my Twitter up and running, so if you guys want to just come over and say hello, it's Trevortainment, TREV Tainment.
Wait, is it Trevtainment or Trevortainment?
It's Trevtainment.
Trevtainment. TRVE is not my name. It's just the Tainment. No, TREV. Trevtainment. Oh my God, we can't spell. TREV.
We're educated, I swear.
Trevtainment. I promise you, man. I wrote out a show. It was very difficult today, but I wrote out a show. Yeah, but follow my man there. Follow Real Take Sports on Twitter as well for updates, man. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Daily videos. I've been preaching that from the heavens. Real Take Sports Talk on Monday nights. This on Tuesday nights. Might do a live stream for Blood and Guts tomorrow. I don't know if I might get copyrighted for that. I have to look into that a little bit because AEW's been actually, if I don't have the audio, I think I'm good. Yeah. So we'll do that.
Have the audio, it should be fine.
Yeah, I'll be fine, man. Damn, those live streams are they're wear and tear on my throat, man. I'm just like,
what was it? 2 hours though?
Oh God, it's like how Tony Khan comes out like, I'm the new biggest deal in wrestling. 4 hours a week.
The smart bastard.
It was like when Test, God rest his soul, Test, when he went to remember when he showed up in ECW and he was just like jacked to the gills, and he got busted for steroids, and then he got released, but then he went to TNA. WWE was like, hey, we got to fire you for steroids. And then it goes to TNA, I'll show you, Roydy. Just monster. No mobility. It was just fucking it was like, hey, touch your toes. I can't. Scratch your back.
What I asked, what do you?
I had to get the was the stuff that in the Boondocks that Bushido Brown had, the toilet.
Yeah.
I told you to get the 2100 series, and the 1100 series is some BS. He's like, I don't care if you wipe it. Bushido Brown don't wipe it. All right. All right. So anyway, guys, this was fun. Another week of this. We'll be back next week. Be sure you check out the Dark Side of the Ring. I'll be coming out with another takeaway videos after that. Airs on Thursday night. Brian Pillman's story is an amazing one. Be sure you subscribe to the channel. At Trevtainment on Twitter to follow this guy right here. I almost pointed in the wrong direction. Right here on Twitter. He'll be active on there a little bit. Real Take Sports on Twitter for us. And yeah, just subscribe to the channel. Have a blessed week. Get through it. And one last thing, Dogecoin to the moon, baby. We will see you next week.
Peace.